But one thing, right, my New Year's resolution is to try when I'm on video calls to just leave my hair alone. So I'm going to sit weirdly like this.
There is a trend of yours I've noticed is that I would say for the first 2 minutes, the hair stays like in some sort of bun shape, and then about 5 minutes in, you start to play with it a little bit.
Yeah.
And 10 minutes in, you're down here somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's like a trend at the start. Is it one of those things where, like, if you're feeling a bit nervous or something, you've got this kind of like.
It's that
you
keep
with
seeing it like
yeah.
you're trying to have a conversation, but there's like your whole face pointed back at you, and
I've decided just not to look at the camera. That's how I go about it.
I mean, I might actually just turn that off, and it might help me to hide thumbnail video. There you go. I'm just going to do that, and then I can just engage like
that's what I do.
Full human with all of my brain and face and everything.
Yeah. This is actually the first time we've spoken this year, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes. So Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I've got a Coke today.
Oh.
Not on a budget. So.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me about it. I think we're we were doing dry January, and then to be honest, Monday hit, and we were like, oh, I need a drink, man.
Dry January lasted about 30 minutes, I think.
Yeah. So no, we do need to we need to sort of wind things in a little bit. One of the most expensive things is booze, and one of the things that kind of slows you down in your creativity and productivity is probably booze as well.
But then again, sometimes you get your best ideas pissed. So
no. Obviously not. No, not for me. And I always remember Julian Casablancas. There's a line in the Strokes song. I don't feel better. Or I don't write better when I'm stuck in a hole. Something like that. And it was sort of alluding to him, drinking a lot and finding comforts in all sorts of distractions. And honestly, I think it creates a bit of a fog. It's nice for escapism, but it's not good for engagement.
No, I'm trying to think of because the last time. By the way, there's no guest today, so it's just being Drew. Probably should announce that just in case anyone came for the guest. Unfortunately, it's 2021.
Yeah, check the title of the episode and wind your disappointment in.
Yeah, exactly. Go back to the start. I get a lot of messages, Drew, and they always say that they listen to us while they're walking the dog.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to use this as a reminder to look around and make sure the dog is in sight. So you know where it is. Make sure you got your poo bags with you. Make sure you've got
nothing worse.
Yeah. That's your reminder before we get going.
Finding a dog egg.
Yeah.
On the bottom of your suede trainers. Like, son of a... Yeah.
Yeah. So last time we spoke, Drew, we actually was a guest on the podcast.
Yes. Yeah. That was really good fun. Honestly, I was mega nervous all day about that one. And then when it arrived, it's like, first couple of minutes, I was feeling like, oh, say something interesting. Represent the whole of the UK design industry, and then I forgot about that, and I don't really remember what happened on it now. I just want to.
I can't remember. I certainly won't be listening to it back. So, and I guess Drew won't be listening to himself back. But we hope you lot enjoy it. The thought of listening to my own voice for 45 minutes is hell. So that won't be happening. But for anyone that is fairly interested in listening to what we have to say, we was on the Advanced Design podcast, and I'm presuming you know who Hector is, or if you don't know who Hector is at Advanced Design, then check him out. It's for our kind of Yankee cousins, or Yank cousins, I should say, across the pond. Or should I say Yank? Should I not say Yank?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Let's just say
American cousins.
Yeah, American. Yeah, let's say that.
I might have to edit that bit out.
No, it was good. I listened to quite a few episodes of Context in the run up to that, actually, and a couple of them he mentioned, and it was really fortunate because the two that he mentioned are the two that I'd listened to. And I will admit to having asked, "Hey, can you give us a clue on where I should start?" He said, "Well, these episodes are really good." And then when he spoke about them, I was like, "Yeah, I know what that is, and that was nice. So it was like me feeling prepared for something.
Yeah, it's almost like
you know me. I like to try and stay in the moment, which means I don't do my homework and I don't do any preparation.
Yeah, anyone that's wondering, I'll be honest, I don't really plan a lot in these conversations. So I just hit record on this thing and we just chat, and then afterwards we go, "Oh, probably shouldn't have said that," or "Oh, that thing I was supposed to talk about, we didn't get around to that." And I think that's kind of where we found our kind of space. It's not the most polished production in the world.
No, and I think that's the beauty of podcasts.
It's to the point.
You listen to any podcast, and the best ones are where they are conversations, not a rehearsed presentation, because there is a time for that. But you know, podcasts are meant to make you feel like you're part of it. You know, and that's why we always wanted to do the live thing. You know, like be on stage, so that we could pull people in to go. Well, okay, does anyone know about I don't know, Keyshop, and get someone in who's like an expert and someone who knows nothing but just straight off the floor.
Why we're doing this is that I certainly get a lot of messages where it's like, okay, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do? Where do you go with this? Can you scale this thing up? And I'm always like, yeah, but I don't really know why people actually listen to it in the first place. So just keep my kind of I'm flattered that people actually listen to us, but I still find it a bit strange. But it kind of has got to a point, isn't it, Design Truth, where it's a bit like, it feels a bit bigger than maybe what it was, because I suppose it's quite apt in where we are, isn't it, where we've gone back into this lockdown and we're kind of at this full circle point in time where it's like we're kind of where we were last when we actually started this thing. And now, you know, we'll get something like, I don't know, I think we've hit like 4,000 or 5,000 listeners or something since we started, which is a lot, I think. I mean, I only know about 9 people, so
you say that, but like you do have a big footprint on LinkedIn, and you do.
I only know about 7 of them, though, Drew.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, but the way that you, I think, convey not only what you're looking for in your job adverts and that type of thing, but also like the frustrations that you go through, the bits of advice. I think you do present a human face to what is seen as. I mean, all right, let's play devil's advocate here. You know, with any agent where you're not being the person who you're essentially like, that's the very definition of a middleman, right? But you are adding value, of course, by finding the right fit for the right solution for the right opportunity, of course, and someone who needs a designer doesn't always know what type of design and what type of character they need and all of that. And it's good to have that filter and have someone with those connections, because I know when I've been hiring people that you can put an advert out, but unless someone's following your, like that company profile on LinkedIn or whatever, it doesn't get there, so you do need those people who have that better reach and who can do the better job of marketing. That said, there's also even if you take, estate agents, it's like, I can sell my own house, I don't need someone else to do it. But yeah, you don't have a shop window. An agent does. An agent has that reach. So I think, whilst it is tempting to go, well, I don't really need, a recruitment agent, but well, actually, if you've got someone who's approachable with a wide net, then yeah, you do.
I think what's been fascinating to me, I think the purpose of this episode, just before we start, is like, I don't think we've only got anything planned, but it's more just to catch up of where we're at in our lives, I think, probably more so. More personal. I think we'll talk a little bit about design, but it might not be, if you really want something it's a bit more like hear from the designers themselves, then seriously just go back and listen to some of the other ones. I think this is a bit more of a personal kind of update as we start the year, rather than something that's a bit more like, oh yeah, you probably should use Keyshop or something like that. No, we've done 16, 17 episodes about photos and stuff, so we've just parked that, and the content's still there, and please do go back. And if this is the first time you've listened to this podcast and this is not really how they go, it's more of just an impromptu episode, because I think it's the start of the year, we're about to go into lockdown, we want to get something out there for this month, and we're planning on doing these kind of once a month, I think. But then again, circumstances are changing, we're now back at home, so it might be we can do a bit more freer, but so this is more of an impromptu update as we start the year, really. And if this is your first look at Design Truth, then I'll probably start 8 episodes in. I wouldn't start at the start. Start about halfway there when we've got fancy music and shit, and then and then work your way back if you're feeling brave enough. But it's weird that you mentioned what you talk about there, Drew. But for me, 2020 was probably I don't want to say my best year in terms of like engagement and being that face that you mentioned, but it was also probably one of my worst years in terms of actual billing and invoicing clients. And I found that a real strange mix of like anyone that, I mean, I get fucking bombarded with like when I go on YouTube, like some sort of marketing consultant or agents trying to sell me a course or something, and it's all about engagement, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, I've done that to a level beyond anyone else that is in our industry, but it's not necessarily filtered through to invoices going through the door and things like that. And it's been a real a lesson in that regard. We've had a really strange year, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'm currently going through a process of a lawsuit, which is a great start, where we've got a client, former client, I should say. Never want to work with these people ever again, as far as I'm concerned. That they owe us in the tune of around about £80,000. So that's not just me, that's across mainly a colleague of mine actually that's been impacted by this more so. But from a business standpoint, we've gone from, we're now looking at quite a significant loss because of that as a company, and we're starting a year under, I'll be honest, some pretty huge pressure to deliver, particularly in this first quarter of the year. I think I'm happy to say this kind of thing because I think it's important I'm honest with people, because I get asked all the time, what's the market like and things like that. And we're under a lot of pressure. I mean, I had a guy meant to be starting in January, which would have been not a great start to the year, but it would have ticked me over for the month. And he dropped out because I think he said something like he needed someone to look after the cat or something. And it's funny in the sense of we can laugh about it, but then I'll come back to work on my first day after a 2-week break, and the very first email I got was, what have you got in for next month? It wasn't, how was your Christmas break? It was, what have you got in for next month? And that's the kind of where we were at as a company. I don't work for myself. I work for a recruitment company called RHL. Yeah. And a lot of these things is from context of, we've had a pretty poor year in terms of, this lawsuit's been horrendous. It's a client that we've billed historically 6 figures per year with, and now all of a sudden they've just turned the tap off. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary. I don't know if anyone can relate to that, particularly people that are working in the consultancy world, but it's one of the most challenging probably the most challenging part of my career this year. And I think what makes it funnier is when I do make the comment that I know my boss isn't listening to this, is that actually Design Truth has been an amazing kind of outlet but also has been an incredibly frustrating experience in terms of internally, people just hate it. Like people that I work with genuinely don't like the fact that I have a podcast called Design Truth, and that's just me being as to the point as I can with people that are listening to this. And I can't tell you how many passive aggressive or odd and just weird emails and Teams calls I've had over the last 6 months. And if I was to give any advice to anyone that's thinking about doing something a bit different whilst they're working for a company, I think you've got to be quite brave, I think, because
you've got to be quite ready with your with your rebuttal. You've got to be ready. You've got to anticipate the potential friction for sure. But the thing is, that really surprises me because since we've been doing this, I've worked at a couple of different places, and there's never been any pushback. There's never been anybody in my teams that have gone, well, that's a bit weird. I don't really want you talking about trade secrets and things, because obviously you're not going to. You wouldn't put yourself in that position But yeah, it's about sort of being the honest voice of at least part of the industry. And like I say, I'm only the honest voice of my own part of the industry. But I think, sometimes where I liken it to records where the lyrics are very personal. They're more relatable to a wider number of people, and it's not necessarily what we're trying to do, but I think it is what we do just by our nature.
Yeah, there's just no bullshit here, is there? But maybe that might give some context to people where, like, I think it's important I let people know that, because it's one of those things where recruitment is, I think people fail to see it in the lens of the person at the other end. And maybe that's ironic coming from me. But to just give you understanding maybe some of the pressures internally at the minute. So, if I'm not getting back to an application, for example, or, I can't necessarily spend an hour of my day free of charge just talking to you about your portfolio and putting it right. I just don't have the time, because I know that if I don't make X money in a period of time, then I don't have a job. So that's just the nature of it. And I get so many messages, and I feel quite guilty sometimes, where I just don't, sometimes I just don't have the time to get back to someone. It's because I'm trying to find people work in a market which is one of the weirdest markets I've ever worked in my life in terms of jobs and stuff. And
and that's probably
I mean, we don't need to go into so much depth, Drew, but I mean, you've had a bit of a crazy couple of days as well, haven't you?
Yeah, and I was going to say that probably actually leads in as well, because if
it's almost like I planned that. It really wasn't.
yeah, good handover. I mean, I don't want to speak too much. I do want to be clear and transparent, but also there's certain things that.
Oh yeah, I've said far too much there. I'm gonna get fucking. I'll get a bollocking while this other comes out. But
yeah, I mean, there's a chance that I could probably overshare here too. So I'm going to just try to be very careful. But yeah, essentially, we all know that not only the pandemic comes with health risks, obviously, but there's economic risks. And whilst I've managed to escape COVID, unfortunately, the economy has caught up with me, let's say. So yeah, I'm on 2 months furlough with a view to basically being made redundant. So yeah,
it's shit, isn't it?
It's taken the wind out of my sails for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And Jess has been amazing. Like, she just sort of hung around me. It was very supportive, and all those things that you don't necessarily know that you need, but you need. So we've played a bit of Call of Duty. We've been for walks. We've had a few workouts.
No, you've not been in the gulag, have you, Drew?
Sorry?
Not been in the gulag, have you?
We literally just do just play the offline battle arenas. So it's like my team, her team, and a load of bots. Because we played one game online before Christmas and just got destroyed. Like, so you spawn, I've burst again. There's something wrong with my character. He keeps dying. So yeah, we've done a bit of that. I mean, that's always super appreciated. I just thought, like, actually, we have touched on these things and these pressures before in the episode, but I thought maybe it's a good time to go now. It's a bit like. From my point of view, here's the stuff that I'm going through.
Yeah, it's so different when it's like your pressure, though, don't you think? Like, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people over the last 6 months. It's like a bit like what you just mentioned there. Like, I've just been furloughed, or I've just been let go. But there'll definitely be people listening to this that have probably gone through that experience you're going through. They're going through it now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're going into lockdown as well the same day. It's probably likely that a lot of people will go through something like that too. So we just thought, well, why not have the therapy session where we go, okay, so the first hour I went, right, I wanted to throw a chair through a window. After that, I was like, no, everything's fine. Actually, with me, when I react to bad news, it's like, everything's cool, it's fine, I'm still alive, aren't I? Yeah, no problem. And then a little while later, it catches up with me, and then I might have a bit of a sulk, or I might just dwell on it a little bit. And then I might get a bit like, no, well, actually, because you get a bit defensive. And be like, well, and then you sort of circle back. And I mean, that's probably been a couple of days. luckily the girls were here as well last night, so that was a nice, pick me up, and it kind of recenters everything as well. And then over that time, with like rearranging the furniture in the apartment, playing a bit of Call of Duty, picking up the guitars every now and then, things just percolate, things just kind of seep in, and eventually, a bit like slow accidental Tetris, things just sort of find their own little spot. And again, it's a bit like, so what I wanted to try and do was, rather than go, okay, well then I've got to do this, like, and in 3 hours decide the next 4 years of my life. So actually, I've got pretty much until the end of April. I can see what there is, and I can start thinking about the advice that we've heard over the course of the podcast, and things that we've read on the Design Truth Discord, and on the live event as well, and just think, well, okay, take my time, let it soak in, let my thoughts apply.
Time's the great thing. I remember when there was so many redundancies happen at Dyson earlier in the year. I think they let 900 people go, and I can't tell you how many people I probably spoke to a good portion of those 900.
Yeah.
And when someone gets let go of that kind of size, you're not really, from a recruitment perspective, you're not necessarily kind of finding those people work. And that is something that people, it's like a construct that people find quite weird. It's well, loads of people are looking for work, so you must be busy as fuck. And it's like, well, yeah, but I'm not busy doing the things that actually make me money. So like the more people you have on a market, the easier it is for your clients to find people themselves. There's no cost to it. I don't know if there'd be, I'm trying to see if I can compare it or make an equivalent to kind of design consultancy world. I don't know if you can, but it's kind of twisted from one way to another, where it's like a skill short market, and therefore your service is a little bit more in demand, and it's gone the other way where it isn't, because it's like, hey, I appreciate all the work you've done for us over the years, but I can get that person for nothing by just putting an ad up. So that's kind
of more like an NBA draft, where it's just like a load of people ready, and you go, okay, well, let's just pick the ones we want first. And I mean, this is it. This is one of the first things that went through my mind. Was like, there's so many really talented, well-experienced, driven
people out there,
designers that are out there that are in a similar position. And then you think, well, okay, knee-jerk, go, well, I'll set my own thing up. But there can only be a certain number of clients out there, right? And again,
I've literally been going through that same decision probably for the last 3 or 4 months of my life. And this lawsuit has been the biggest, when you talk about the need, it's been the biggest thing for me in my mind of going like, if that happened when I was working on my own, I'd be fucked. Like, and
you need a lot to be able to float you for being hung out for that long. Like, this is what happens. This is the risk with small businesses. It's like, you can fold because someone just hangs you out.
And we're seeing so many people start up at the minute. We did an episode, didn't we, about starting up an agency or freelance or doing with the two Toms. And I was speaking to someone today about it. Yeah, the two Toms. Yeah. I was speaking to someone today about it that was like, thinking about going freelance, doing his own thing. He had a pretty comfy job. And I was like, look, I was just trying to relate into a situation that we're going through. I was like, if I was working for myself, are the clients going to pay me? And are they going to pay me on time? And, it's all well and good saying 30 days payment, but in recruitment terms, I find quite a lot of companies take the piss a little bit, and they'll stretch that out because they know that they've already got the product, i.e. the person started. And they kind of, even companies that are quite reputable and quite what you would say as a designer think, God, they're a really good company to work for. I've probably got a very different experience to that, should we say, from my end, where I'm looking at thinking, hold on, that person started and I haven't been paid for it. Like, it's recruitment's one of those really strange industries where you can't really compare it to anything else. And I think it's mainly because of just the actual shit reputation it actually has as well. So everyone's had their horror story of it. And it's almost, I'd love to be able just to go one day and say, right, these guys, they really fucked me off once when I sent someone to them and then they said, no, he's not right for me. And then he turns up and works there 1 month later. And it's like, that's interesting. Things that have happened over the last, you can tell I'm getting a bit angry now. Things that have happened over the last 6 months that you'd look at and you just think, you can't. I know people are tight for cash and all things like that, but it's a massive kick in the teeth. I'll be honest. What's been happening over the last few months? It really is, and I don't want it to come across as some sort of like X Factor sob story, but
no, but you definitely, you'll definitely get my vote. I'll let you come back to the judges' houses.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think so. I saw a thing today from BEDA that they're doing a conference about.
They got something on the 20th.
In the UK. Sorry,
it's on the 20th, isn't it?
I don't know.
Shameless plug, but
well, I was having a little look at like what it might be about and things like that. And I just thought, like relationships have changed no matter what the business is, and that's the thing that I think we really need to have a look at in terms of how we design, what are the relationships with design and the rest of the our suppliers and clients and all of that type of thing, and as well, recruitment comes into that too.
Massively. We're still working in a way that we used to work like 15 years ago. But, and whilst I get a little bit annoyed when people say, they want 60 days payment over 30 or something like that, and whilst that riles me, equally, we're probably to blame for that because of our lack of agility in the way we structure payment and things like that. So I don't want to get into too much boring detail, things like that. But that's also one of the frustrations I imagine people go through when they work at a company, and particularly a small company. I mean, there's only 6 or 7 people where I work. And it's like, you could probably fix the problem, but you're not going to get the authority to go and do that. So if I was to turn around and say, okay, let's change payment a little bit, or we'll do more at the front end or something like that, and we'll split it over, I wouldn't get sign off on something like that. So these things have been, you're trying to change kind of mindset and stuff, and Design Truth is a great example of that. I mean, I've spoken to more people and, met some pretty amazing people through Design Truth, and it's not as if I haven't made any money this year. I've probably still turned a profit for the company. I don't want to sound like I'm not doing my job or anything, but
because your new boss might be out there listening.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm still not. They would have sacked me otherwise. So it's I don't want to give the impression that I'm just really bad at my job, but that whole kind of mindset of like, why are you doing a podcast, things like that. It's just, it's been a really challenging, really challenging year of kind of making people think things in a slightly different way. And I'm sure designers go through that, where they're like, well, why don't you put out content and things like that? I'm sure young designers might, they're not necessarily all wanting to do a TikTok dance, but around a prototype, but equally, there's still probably, can work in different ways.
And I think likewise, there's probably people who just want to be really good at understanding a user experience and being able to put together a solution to that, and don't want to have to be on YouTube or on Instagram or anything else. That kind of stuff is great, but we've talked about it in terms of the portfolios before. Like, and I saw that thing from what's the German one? Portfolio Boost.
Simon Kim, that
with the donuts on Blender. Yeah. Like, maybe not everyone wants to do the same stuff all the time. Maybe the fun part is the investigation and pulling things apart and putting things back together again. And maybe you don't want to compete with someone who's naturally very good. It's about choosing your battleground, really, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to go and meet the rest of the industry where they live. I would rather be able to sit back and relax and go, wouldn't that be lovely? If I can sit back and relax and just field propositions, obviously, like, here's what I am, here's what I'm good at, in my own words. And often you find with like overly structured things, like, even portfolios, I don't think I'm going to come across well in a portfolio because a lot of the work I've done is in-house and I can't share.
Yeah.
So
Is you at the start of that process now? Like, because I'm sure if we'd have spoken before Christmas, it wouldn't have been a case of like, I need to probably get my folio together just in case things go a bit tits up here. But
I'm not at the start of that process.
No.
I'm into that process a little bit, but also I'm kind of like, I'm not pushing it too hard because I've got I don't know if that's what I would really want to do. I don't know if I want to go and just replace like for like. I am keen to. I've been putting off for a long time building my own thing, and I'm not sure what that is. I know that it would ideally have some kind of academy side to it. Yeah, North Wales Bauhaus. That's what I want to do. I want to get like a gang of designers that are probably in a similar position and take a syndicate approach, and yeah, just have like a hub of, you go out and get your own work. You're self-employed. You either start your own projects or you go out and have something from a client. But if you want to share from a pool of ideas, well, we're all there to support each other and elevate. And I think that's it. Like once you're out of uni and out of that studio environment where you're not competing, or at least you're not competing for grades, you're not competing for money, you're not competing for anything really other than just like maybe a bit of kudos and a bit of someone walking past going, holy shit, how did like that render is amazing. Like those kind of things are really it's never happened to me, but look up, like we've mentioned on
maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe one day. Yeah. But that's it. I like, yeah, the ideas are there, but they're totally not formed. So I'm not going to just sort of throw my weight behind anything right now.
Yeah.
I am looking to pick up a bit of a bit of simple CAD work. If I can get a couple of contracts in, then it gives me a longer cash runway, and I can relax a little bit. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of other people that are doing that too.
Yeah,
monetizing some of the basic skills without having to stretch the creative.
Yeah, the beauty you've got is time, isn't it? Because if you're furloughed, I don't know if I even made the Dyson point last time because we went off kilter, but if you've got like 3 months, like they were paid 3 months notice. So you don't really need to start looking for work, like from day one, because you know you've got 3 months worth of pay coming through, but you're still going to, in theory, should still cover costs and stuff. So you can do other things. You have a little bit of time to upskill if you really want to do it. So if you're 3 months and you want to learn how to be a UX person, or you want to work in something completely different to design, but you want to do a course or something like that, you've got 3 months. Where you have actual time away from your work, where you can almost treat it like a job, like you're going to upskill yourself.
Yeah.
So you don't have too much pressure on you. In 2-3 months, what we're looking at April. Now, touch wood, the restrictions we're under now, we shouldn't really be under those restrictions in April. Yeah. I'm still a little bit pessimistic in terms of. For context, I was the person in the office last January that was telling people to wash their hands. So I'm quite cynical about these kind of things anyway. But yeah. I'm still quite cynical about the long-term kind of recovery of this kind of thing. I still think that, just to say that this is going to be over by mid-February because a few people will be vaccinated, I think it's just quite naive. But I still think, if you think April time, the market should be a little bit better there. I'm probably turning into a counsellor now. New financial year budget, new budgets are going to be signed off. Positive thoughts, and that's what I'm hoping. If anyone else is listening to this is in a bit of a similar boat to you, just to get. I think one of the things I've tried to. I've not been furloughed, so it's a bit different for me. Although you can sometimes I know symptoms you get furloughed, but I feel like you can feel it coming. You can feel it. I'm looking at kind of start times for people to start work. It's not an instant thing. You've got a notice period, you've got interviews. It's like, I can start to feel like I might start having some quite awkward conversations quite soon because if things don't, and that's when you get into a cycle of, you're forcing it or whatever. And I think sometimes you just need that positive reinforcement, don't you? Of like, you've got a couple of months, it's all good. As long as your bills are paid, and it really depends because some people are in different financial positions, aren't they, to others, so there's different pressures and stuff, but you've got a few months, I think.
Yeah, I'm not going to muck about. It's going to be really tight for those 2 months while I'm on furlough because it's a lot less than I normally.
Is it still 80? Is it still 80%? I don't know what it is.
It's not 80% of what I earn now.
Okay.
So I'll bring home a lot less. So that leaves me some juggling to do and some sacrifices to make. But again, that's why I'm looking for some CAD contract work.
CAD stuff.
Usually that I can kind of start something up and just take the pressure off. So there's that. And if I can get into the swing of doing that frequently, well, that's great. I've done that before, and I know that that's definitely a sustainable way of doing things. And that also gives you a chance to kind of really explore and just take a breather.
It's just not something you want to do for the rest of your life.
No, not really, because you're on career path upwards, and you get to head of product development. You're like, oh shit, you go out and buy a Hugo Boss suit, and that's what like. You're like suddenly all these fucking labels are in your head. You're like, shit, this the apartment looks really nice, and I've got like it's warm all day, and then you go, okay, no, all of that is gone. Or it's not gone, but it's in jeopardy, and that's like,
it still could come back.
Plans for the things, I was looking at buying a house and all that kind of stuff. So all those kind of things have to go on hold, and then you think, well, okay, well, it's actually not that bad. It's just a new roll of the dice, and I'm not someone who's going to allow myself to just sulk, because that's a slippery slope. That's a starlight pit. Once you're in there, you stew away for a long time. So for me, I'm like, okay, I know there's a couple of reasonable things that I can expect, and that's like I can get some income going. So I'm going to just concentrate on that for the short term. Like you say, upskilling. I put a post on LinkedIn earlier, like, okay, I pretty much know I need to learn to code. It's basically like another workshop skill now.
Yeah.
When you look at it, if you're at home, and what equipment have you got? Well, I can't get a lathe in here, and I haven't got space for even a small FDM. So what have I got? I got the Mac, which means I can create a user interface, and I can write the code and turn that into a living, breathing piece, a product, an app. The one thing is that I don't know how to take it from the prototype into iOS code or whatever. So I need to. I don't know the first thing about any of that. So I need to learn about that. So. That's another bit to do, and then likewise you start looking at longer term. What do I want to do? And really, I know that for the longest time now, I've wanted to make like high functionality furniture and stuff for inside your house that is still beautiful and it's still a pleasure to operate, and it doesn't have to be something that's still tactile. Something that doesn't have to be all smartphone driven. So I'm like, well, okay, none of that is actually hard to prototype and hard to build. Like, that's about finesse and about getting, like, the difficult bit there is how do you build a business case around that? How do you start monetizing that quickly?
It's funny you mention that, because I get asked quite a lot, sometimes by people, sometimes by friends and stuff, how are you going to monetize Design Truth? Like, you've got this thing, just leave your job and do that, and it's one of those questions where you're like, well, yeah, but how do I make 45,000 £45,000 a year out of it, like, to cover that's the
that's it. Like,
that's just the honest conversation. It's not as if I want to rake money out of all you lot listening, but it's more just a case of, it's fun that we do this. I think we have a laugh, and that's it keeps us sane. But
it becomes something very different if it's both of our full-time job. And it needs to be worth making that transition for as well. So, like,
I don't know if we could. I don't know how. Like, maybe if anyone's got any cracking ideas, then my inbox, trust me, is as open as it's ever going to be.
Yeah.
But I just don't know how you can scale it to a point where it's like, oh, we're making a bit of money out of this. I'm sure there are ways. I'm sure there are. We've looked at and we've spoken about things in the past, haven't we, of like little ideas, and you look at it and then maybe you think about it 2 days later and go, "No, that's just shit."
But no, I think when we first talked, we talked about like the live events and those being, town hall, not being not being anything like that. But then I do think I have always thought that there is room for a TV program about design, like Grand Designs, something like that. Or about the years and years ago on BBC Two, there was Designs on Your...
You were suggesting we turn this into a TV programme?
Turn it into a TV programme in a heartbeat, yeah. Honestly, if I could have been anything, I would have been a director. Writer, director, and an actor too, but that's all far-fetched, isn't it? Like, I know some people manage it, like, obviously they do, but... No,
I think
it's like you turn your drawings into chairs, and then you sell chairs. And that's a real thing. That's real.
Yeah, it's about that balance of like, how do you monetize it to a point where it's like sustainable for your living? But equally, I think it's definitely something we could monetize for, like, a couple £100 a month or something like that type thing. if you look at like people, we could get a sponsor on this thing for God's sake, or I don't know, I got sent some products the other week and things like that, and as I could just throw it into your face and say, buy this, and things like that, or there were things we could do. I mean, we were looking at the idea of Patreon, weren't we, as like a thing to like actually upscale the quality of this thing, and be the kind of the pillar for us to be able to put events on and things like that.
Yeah,
but
and
again, that's not something that's going to.
I think it becomes an episode every 2 weeks, and you have to have a really good guest every time. And that, I don't know if that's something that we're in a position to do, like realistically. Because if we were, I would do it every 2 weeks in a heartbeat again, you know, because I really enjoy it, and I've learned loads from.
Yeah,
from
I think I enjoy it because it's not all the time. It's not as if I don't like speaking to you, Joe. I enjoy our chats, but if it came every day and I was talking about portfolios every day,
work then, isn't it?
I just, it's only so many times I can. I'm going through this process. I'm going to do a shameless plug here. I'm looking for an industrial designer at the moment. 4 years plus, Consumer Electronics London, and I'm looking at applicants, and they're so shit. Like, I'm sorry if you applied for the job. I don't mean that in a nasty way. It's just in comparison to the brief. It's just nowhere near the standard right now. And it's like what you mentioned. There's only so many times I can mention portfolios and what you need to do and all this kind of stuff. The nuts and bolts of it, you're either good at design or you're not. And it really is, for me, it's as black and white as you've either got it or you don't.
Come on, I got to come on the defence here as well. Like, some people are not very good at putting together a portfolio and a CV and a covering letter, and then maybe sending out 12 a day. So they're not taking the time to. I mean, what would you say? Send out 12 a day and just crop dust, or take the time and write the letter from scratch?
It's not that. It's just even if someone's doing that, so even if someone's taking that approach, just from the quality of the work, I'm not talking about the application. I'm talking about the quality of the actual output of the work. So the sketching, the renders, all that kind of stuff. It's just so far away from the quality of standard that I know that the client is looking for. And they're not looking for something that's like universally above and beyond what anyone else is looking for. And that's why I get a little bit, I apologize if it's blunt, but that's as blunt as it gets put to me in meetings. And, you know, it's far more rude. Some of the feedback I get on photos is absolutely savage, by the way. So I'm trying to humanize it a little bit, but there's only like, so for me, like portfolios, and maybe because maybe it's a reflection of the clients that I work with. They're quite big names in our industry and things like that. So the standard of work there is super high anyway. So I'm not saying like you're never going to get a design job ever, but what I am saying is you're probably not going to get a gig at, you know, like those kind of companies. It's just not going to happen.
Well, I think we've talked before about like, I mean, actually the first time I got a job at Convatec, I thought I had not a chance of even getting a reply. So those kind of things, you know, like, always roll the dice, but do it with maybe
just be honest.
Spend that extra bit of time. If it's something that is you know, a big name, or sounds like, you know, it's consumer electronics in London, it's not going to be something completely rubbish, is it? It's going to be something where you really got to put your best showcase together, and that means start from scratch. Take the time. Like, this is a piece of work that represents everything you can offer. Every bit of text you put on there, on your letter, on your CV, on your folio, needs to speak to something in the application and into that industry as an absolute minimum starter, you know.
And if
you know, it has to answer what is it that Brad is looking for. You know, you have to really think about it. He's going to see an absolute ton of these. He might not even get as far down the pile as mine, potentially. I mean, I don't know, it might be different for you, it might be different for another recruiter, but something that makes you stop. We talked about someone delivering it in a pizza box, and you're like, okay, whether it was garbage inside or not, or whether it was amazing inside, we don't know.
Probably got feedback there.
But yeah, exactly. It'll stop and make him go, oh, that's interesting.
If someone, you can tell when someone's put the time in. So like when you talk about their like starting from scratch, when someone has done that, you will get some form of feedback or acknowledgement. If it for me or from the client, if you used to apply direct and things like that, like when I can tell that someone's made effort into something, like they will get a a feedback, or maybe you need to think about this or do that, because it's just. But a lot of the time, they've sent it out everywhere, and then they've put "Hi Brad" on the top. They've not actually changed it from the last
I'm really
application.
interested in working for your company.
Yeah, your company. Yeah, and
your
I'm
team sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's and I appreciate it's difficult to find work, and you're probably going up on the advice that you've been given, whether that's from a lecturer or a friend or whatever. And maybe I'm partially to blame because I don't give people that much advice on things like this. And it was explained to me earlier by a chap. I'll say his name. So I did say I was going to steal this line and say it was a chap called Tony Elkington, who you'll probably see on Instagram. He's got far more followers than what we've got. And he said something like, you need to take a step back and ask yourself, would you hire yourself for this job? And if you're making any application right now, I want you to go back and look at your portfolio and go, would I hire me? And I think that's something that's a really important kind of point of like, I think a lot of people just, it sounds so brutal, and I really apologize if it sounds as harsh as this, but it's like, it's just not good enough. And I really don't want to put a downer on your whole design career, but I just think you kind of, it's like a Premier League thing. Like, you'll eventually find your point in the table, and it's not to say that eventually you'll go back up the league, but it's like, you're not going to get a job at Leia if you're not very good at, like, to the standard. And if you want to know what the standard is, it's quite easy just to go on LinkedIn, find out the names of people that work there, and then just go on Google and look at their portfolio. Like, you'll see what the standard is. There'll be someone there that's got a portfolio online of sorts, whether it's from their grad days or whatever, and just look at it and then go, yeah, that's quite good, isn't it? So it's not, I appreciate your argument is that people aren't great at like putting a CV together and stuff, and I get that to a point, but like, to the person that I'm trying to hire for this job for a massive consumer electronics company, it's kind of a given that you would be able to put like a presentation together. Like, so that's where I'm coming from. It's like, even though I appreciate people might find it difficult to put something together, like, you should know how to. Like, it's not something that you should, for that kind of caliber of job.
Yeah,
I just naturally expect that someone, I shouldn't be having to coach someone for something like that. It should just be a natural thing. That's just my take on it. And whether that's wrong, then shoot me down in flames. But that's just
it's not, is it? I mean, I'm just trying to sort of soften the blow a little bit, to be honest, because it always hurts when you realise like you either don't have the experience or
look, it's a bit like when I apply. It's a bit like when I apply for a recruitment job. If I haven't done it, but if I did, I said, "Oh, I build this amount this year," and they just look at me and went, "Well, we build double that." So your value is just gone, and it's hard to take. And I've been with colleagues and stuff that have been through it, where they've gone to interview for other places. They thought they were pretty good, and the feedback they got was quite savage. You're not really doing as well as what the industry standard is. But that was just but the kind of the environment they're in now, or were in when they were with us, they felt they were quite good. But the reality is they're not that great. But that's fine. You just hopefully that gives you like another kind of example of like, it's not like it's the end of the world for you. It's just like, you just got to find your level.
And I'd say this as well as another thing. Like, we've all got similar kind of degrees and similar kind of portfolios at the end of it, right? But we've all got very different strengths. And okay, if you're applying for, I mean, you said Leia. I mean, they're known for like beautiful work. If your work isn't in that, then that doesn't mean that you're bad at doing design.
Oh, no.
Not fit there, like that might not be. And again, I don't know whether that's, I guess, just a very loose example, but it might be that you really excel at something else where you can still use all of that same motivation, like the user-centered design or wherever it is. And it might be in something that you wouldn't think twice about, like an oil and gas or like a secondary steelwork or interior design, or like it could be anything else, where some of those skills, some of those manual skills or whatever it is, are not as highly, like, not as crucial, but the thinking is, and still, it's just, again, you're talking about, like a league, or if you talk more about like boxers and different styles of boxers, you've got different weights, sure, but there's just a different
Styles make fights, don't they?
Styles make fights, yeah, exactly, yeah. Now, you're either going to work really well with one trainer, one camp, and do well against one fighter, or you're going to get your ass handed to you. And that's exactly what it's like when you're
and equally, if you've had
self-representing as a designer, whether you're looking for in-house agency or
and even if you've had a bad experience, like let's say we'll just use Leia, because I mean it's not a bad thing against Leia, it's just the name that's mentioned before. So let's say you've had a bad experience there, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a bad experience at any other design consultancy in London. Like, you'll find your place. Like, you might think that Priestman Good do similar work, but you might get on better with the people there, or the culture of the people. So, and that when you feel more comfortable in your environment, then you're probably going to produce better work. So there are other things to consider as well. It's all about, sometimes, I talk about quality of work not being strong enough, but it's also about kind of cultural fit and things like that, and that plays a larger part of why you get a job or why you don't get a job. But yeah, hopefully you've softened the blow far better than what I softened it. I mean, I'm pounding people.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing. I've always struck out. Well, I say always struck out, but like, I've struck out a number of times, and I've not even made it, like, got any feedback. And you look back and go, yeah, no, that's nowhere near. It's nowhere near. Like, just the presentation of the work, never mind what the work is. And then there's other times, you put something in, and it's not like a lesser position. I mean, we're talking about like Medela, something like that, that's known for good human-centered design, and you get pulled on board, and it isn't. Yeah, it's not the end of the world by any stretch, but sometimes you just do have to look at, did you really put your best effort into that application? Did you really feel like, hey, I mean, yeah, it's a big opportunity. I need to pray, eat right, sleep properly, all of those things. Did you really do that? And if you can,
it's a life lesson. It's a life lesson, isn't it? Really, I look at, like, when I've lost out on a piece of work, or I get a message saying the job's been filled or something like that, and I go, yeah, I probably didn't do as much as I could have done on that. I could have done more on that. Like, when I actually look back and I go, you couldn't strike out and go, oh, the world's against you, but equally you look at yourself and go, yeah, probably dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah, a lot of times you did everything you could, and it wasn't the right fit. And that's that. Like, oh geez, she's just not like to you. There's nothing more you can do about it than that. There's chemistry, opportunity, everything comes into play. And again, we've talked enough times on the podcast with different guests about building the right culture, having the right chemistry. So, I think it was important to just sort of get together today, and I think hopefully we'll turn this one back out in the next day or two, because it needs to be of the time. That was the reason for doing it. And
because we've just gone full circle, haven't we? We started this thing in lockdown 1, and now here we are, lockdown 3, and it has been a tough few days, isn't it? I think for everyone.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a shocker, but like I say, I know that I'm not the only person who's in this, has been in it, and it would be great. I think this is the thing that we've got with having this platform, is that it's an opportunity to say, hey, why not support each other, and that extends out to the listenership as well.
Yeah, anyone wants to
share stories, help other people to go. Yeah, it's like, just be that support network for each other. That's what we're trying to do here. And I'll even go so far as to say that syndicate idea that I mentioned earlier, not a joke. That's my dream that I want to do. Is like have a little gang, a little hub where we're a network, and where we're supporting each other, and not wrestling each other for jobs. I don't think there's too much of that, to be honest. There's never any bad blood between designers that I've come across anyway. But there is that sort of rather than competing for work, let's share it a little bit and see if we can build a community around that. But
I'd say before we just wrap this up, I'd say to anyone, if you're looking for work right now, or you've maybe in a position that kind of Drew's in, or you're a graduate looking for your first thing, whatever, feel free to come on. And my only prerequisite is that you've got to have half decent audio. If you want to, get yourself a USB mic or something. But yeah, seriously, come on. We'll put the shared screen up. You can talk through your work. We'll put you on LinkedIn Live or something like that, and you can we're happy to do those things, and that's something that we'd love to do. I had a message the other day about he was a graduate, and he said, "I'd love to hear from a couple of graduates that have actually found jobs this year, just to see how they went
Actually,
about it."
to that point, I've got two that I spoke to in December that both are new graduates and that have a new gig. And yeah, they both seem like they have the right kind of energy and will be excited. So I was thinking, bring them both on at the same time. You know,
Yeah, just bring a couple on, and just and again give that kind of platform really. So yeah, I don't know if that was a bit like therapy, Drew, but
yeah, no, it's always helpful. You know, like I say, there's a lot of plans spinning, and I'm sure that's probably typical of a lot of other people out there. And I don't have any advice. I'm just like, just representing myself. This is the only thing I can do.
Yeah, I literally go through these extremes of like one day I wake up and go, right, I'm going to quit my job today. Right, design truth. I'm just going to go all in for it.
Yeah.
And then the next day I go, oh no, no one will pay for that. So so you just go through these extremes, but I think it's important that it's important that we let our listenership know where we're at and what we're thinking, because you never know, they might be able to actually point us in the right direction, or confirm that your ideas are shit. So
this has run its course. Guys. Please get more guests on and don't do this ever again.
Yeah.